And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Now, the thing that attracted me to Unicornus Knights was the theme of this game. In this game, there is a princess, and it's like this backstory where there's an evil king, and he's taken over the land by force and killed her father and what have you, and now she's going to take the land back. And she is righteous, and she is pure, and she is going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And you are one of her advisors or loyal knights or followers, and you're kind of like, maybe we should think about this. And she's like, no, I am going to go take out the king by hook or by crook. I'm going to go. And she goes bent on this mission of righteous vengeance. And so to win this game, players cooperatively are her advisors and knights and such, and they have to go and clear the path and make sure she can get there. Maybe distract her and make her go the right way. Or just go in there and kill the enemies in front of her so that she can get to the palace and claim her rightful throne. It's a really cool theme. Let's hope the game matches it. Players are going to build a semi-random board. I say semi-random because the princess is going to start down here in the corner, and the evil king who she's trying to defeat starts up here. And then you'll have enemies basically up here, and the good guy space is down there. But other than that, it's pretty random. Players are going to pick which princess they're going to use. There's different variations with different hit points and how many soldiers she can have. And special abilities, like her damage is reduced by 2. If you play this princess, everyone gets 2 extra cards at the beginning of the game. So there's basically just, you pick the princess that you're going to have. Each character is then going to pick one of these each player is going to pick a starting character. Like here you can be a half-dragon or the fortress king. And so there's your various different tropes, anime, and various, of course that affects also the way that they look and such. So you're going to pick one of these characters, and the character that you pick is going to have health, and they're going to have a certain limit of armies that they can have. And you'll notice that they also have different stats on them for when they attack or when they defend. Now, for many of the characters, attacking and defending is the same, but for some characters it's going to be different. Like this Fortress King here is much better on defense. This shows what you hit on, this shows what you miss on, and that shows a failure, the last row, which you will do basically a damage to yourself. So players are going to take these, and they're going to have their character on the board, and all the characters are showing by stand-ups. And essentially what's going to happen is each player in the game is going to get a certain number of actions for their characters. So each character is going to get a number of actions based on the number of players. The fewer players, the more actions that you have. And these actions can involve you moving on the board. Although when you look at the board here, we're going to take a closer look at this piece. Some of the spots are going to cost more to move into because when you move, you're going to have to pay supplies. Now, players are going to they can use an action to get supplies. There are different spots on the board, or in any city you can get supplies. So you can use an action, for example, to get 3 supplies from here. And there's other ways like cards to get supplies. Players are also going to have armies with their character. These are going to give you a certain number of dice that you're going to be able to roll in combat when you fight bad guys. And so you're going to need to pay supplies for each army that you have, but you'll have to pay more to move into the mountains. So there's like some army logistical maneuvering type things going on here. Players are going to be running around trying to attack enemies. When they attack enemies, they're going to be rolling dice equal to the armies that they have. They'll be applying hits when they get hits. They're going to roll dice, get hits, misses, or do damage to themselves. Damage to themselves can make them lose armies, or can even make you lose hit points on your character. But when you hit the enemy, you're either going to do damage to just the troops, if it's just a pile of troops you're fighting, or you might be fighting an enemy who might have a pile of troops that you have to do. Each bad guy has their card that they're going to have. So the bad guys' cards are here. They have a certain number of hit points, and they're going to do, and you have to do a certain number of damage to them, or they're going to hit you for that much back. And they also have special abilities that they have. Now, each character has a background on them. Blue characters are always going to stay still, stay where they are, so they're kind of just defensive characters. The white characters of background are basically normal, and they will stay there, but if you move next to them, they're going to come and attack you. And then the red characters are kind of frenzy characters. If you move next to their area, they're going to come after you. They're going to move a space each turn. So all the characters are going to go. Then the bad guys are going to move. Well, some of them are going to move. And then the princess is going to move. And she's essentially going to, she has 3 actions. She will resupply herself, picking up supplies, and then move herself with her army along. And she'll always try to go the easiest route possible. Like, for example, moving on a road here. But you got to be careful because she'll run into enemies. And she can beat an enemy. She doesn't have to roll dice. When she hits an enemy, she basically obliterates them, but she'll take 1 damage for each basically military power and or strength that they have. So they'll easily hurt her or possibly destroy her. So while she's the most powerful figure in the game, she's also the weakest in kind of a sort of way. When a character moves into an area where there's an enemy, they're going to draw a fate card for that enemy. And that's going to change them. Some enemies will become an ally of the princess. So, for example, this character here, let's take a look here at XR, the Ice Lord. When you fight him, he's going to remove a battle die. So not very useful when you fight him. But when he becomes your ally, he will add a battle die and give you command +1. You can have 1 more troop with you. Getting people as allies can be pretty powerful. If they become an ally of the princess, they just add to her stats, basically making her a little more powerful. Basically, they lose their special powers and have damage taken in battles reduced by 1. So that's a good thing when you find this, the Princess Plight, and it kind of has a story behind it. You meet this guy and he's like, oh, well, or her, and she's like, oh, well, I've always kind of liked the princess. And when you defeat her, she becomes an ally. Sometimes they have no special abilities. Sometimes they'll be attracted to you. Sometimes they get stronger when you find them. Sometimes they have a trap that does damage to your enemy. And sometimes they become aggressive and will now chase. Or now the princess will come after this person instead. So on a player's turn, they can recruit and get more soldiers and have them join them. They can get resources because they're going to need to use those resources. They can move on the board, like I already mentioned. They can send resources to somebody else. They have to pay, they have to send some of their soldiers to someone else, but they can send resources to another player that will let that player do different things. They can draw these special cards here. Destiny, they can only do this once per turn, but these cards can be useful. It can give you an ongoing thing like add a die before attacking, or once per battle have 3 dice, or give you 2 actions when you play the card, or 3, or just give you some resources, or move a bad guy 1 space, or move the princess 1 space in any direction without cost. Reduce the damage that the princess will take this round is reduced by 3. So getting those cards can be very useful, and you might have a special power that you can use as a special ability. So that's basically how the game goes. You're going to keep going. The princess has to get up to here, get into the thing, and defeat the king, or you defeat the king, and then she just walks into the middle here. The king is not really affected by a lot of special powers. You're just going to have to go in and get him out by brute force. There might be other victory conditions. For example, this guy must also be defeated if he's on the board. He may not be, depending on the random cards that come out. And, you know, something else might happen, like, for example, that card I showed you where the princess will now head for that specific character. Anyhow, you get there, you win. If the princess dies at all, you lose. If a certain number of rounds goes by, and those rounds are kept track of by these event cards, which do possibly some good things, but likely bad things to you. If you run out of event cards over the course of the game, and they get worse and worse because they're shuffled and put in there 1s, 2s, and 3s, then you will also lose. So it's much easier to lose, but of course if you do defeat the king and get the princess there, everyone cheers in victory together. Now the gameplay of this is very intriguing. This is kind of an intriguing game to me because it feels different. It is a cooperative game, and there is mostly, you know, strategic moves, but there's a lot of luck in the cards you draw and the dice you roll. Losing a critical battle can be pretty bad, or winning a battle you thought you were going to lose, but for the most part you can kind of see how battles are going to play out ahead of time. And so the whole thing is this army logistics. It's almost like a cooperative war game with a theme on it that doesn't look very warish, right? It's, you know, it's a princess, you know, but you need to make sure that you have characters who balance each other out. As I found, you need to have support characters are fine, but you also need characters who can just go in there and fight the bad guys. But the support characters are helpful too. So it would be a good thing to look over all the characters. It's also a good thing at the beginning of the game to look over all those bad guys. There's a lot of bad guys all over the board, the Imperial folks, and they all do different things. And so you might say, let's not even go close to that guy because we don't want to tick him off and he'll stay in his castle and leave us alone if we don't. And I like that. You're trying to find a path of least resistance for the princess to go. So it's kind of like a puzzle in that regard with some dice chucking and card playing along the way. It is certainly a game where the players are working together, and it could fall prey to the type of player who tells everyone else what to do, because that is kind of a thing, you should do this and send me those supplies. But, you're going to have those people in a lot of games, so you're going to have to deal with that person, I suppose. But I like how this works in this game. The enemies are pretty interesting. They're kind of just static enemies on the board, but a few of them move. And when they move across troops, they'll pick those troops up and bring them into battle. And some of them are just too powerful. And you're like, all right, what we need to do is I'm going to have that person chase me, and I'm going to just pull that person out of the way of the princess so she can move through. But you can't avoid fighting the whole game. You got to go in there and beat that king and probably some of the other people along the way. And if you can get them to be your allies, so much the better. It has a very strong thematic flavor to it. I really like, you beat the knight and he's like, I will join you. It just feels cool. It feels like a scene in the movie. That guy, he was working for the king, but he's really honorable. Now he's with us. Or that just, I thought that person was nice and then they turned evil. It's cool. And so, the story that the game has is pretty good. It is a little clunky. There are times where I feel like there's just a little bit too much. Okay, I'm moving this army and I have 4 people and I got this many supplies, and so I need to pay this many supplies to move this army a certain number of steps. I feel like it could have been done a little bit smoother maybe. And because there are so many Imperial bad guys on the board, you're constantly looking at these cards. What does this person do? What this? And the artwork, there are some of the illustrations where it's like, come on, guys, this is some of those silly anime tropes. But I do like the princess. I do like the idea of getting the princess there, and that theme does come through the game strongly. It is a puzzle game, as I said, but it is one in which you are working cooperatively together, and there's enough that it feels thematic, that we're fighting battles and clearing the way. So the best thing I can say about this game here, Unicornus Knights, is that it's very unique. It feels very cool and refreshing in a genre of cooperative games, of which there are so many of. And so certainly you're going to want to check it out if you like the theme at all. But even if that theme of fantasy doesn't appeal to you, you still might like the logistical and maneuvering in this game. So I like it. That's Unicornus Knights. Dice Tower Judgment approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.